we're going to go ahead and kick off our best practices portion of the DVD. This portion of the DVD is going to focus on how you can minimize your computer's vulnerability to different viruses and malware, and how you can change your behavior as well so that you don't have to really worry too much about encountering these different viruses and allowing them to infect your machine. Because of course we all run across the same things, but it's the way that you handle the different problems that determines how your computer is going to fare through these different things. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, the first item I want to bring up here is that you should always make sure that your operating system is up to date. The reason I say that is because Windows is always finding different vulnerabilities and different exploits that can be used to compromise a Windows machine. A lot of people have a lot of bad stuff to say about Windows, but let's face it, right? It's most of the market. There are a lot of people out there who use it. Therefore, you have to make sure that with all those eyes on your operating system, that you keep as up to date as possible. So first thing, you may have noticed this already in the DVD, we have our yellow shield icon here. Now in this case it's telling us that we have updates that have to be installed right now. Alright, and it's asking me, do I want to restart now or later? I'm going to restart later. And if you want to be able to configure the way that Windows XP updates, then you can always come to your control panel, and once you're in here you can go to automatic updates. And just in case also, if your view doesn't look this way, it may look this way. You may have it in a different view here, but you can always click right on the top left and you'll get your option to switch to classic view, and that's the view that gives you a few more options, and to me it's a little bit more straightforward. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to automatic updates, and you can see here as it's currently set on this computer, they're set to download and install every day at 3 a.m. So this computer will be up to date, but in this case if you don't keep the computer on, then you're not going to be able to install those updates at 3 o'clock in the morning. So you definitely have to make sure that you go the schedule that's best for you. Maybe 12 o'clock at lunchtime is best for you, or maybe let's say just after you get home from work or something. Let's say 7 o'clock in the afternoon. But as I mentioned before, you definitely want to address this, and you definitely want to know how you're going to install your updates and when you want to download them, because you have to have an up-to-date operating system. Part of the reason why this virtual environment that I created here was able to be infected so easily was because I negated a lot of the Windows updates. When I was up to date on this virtual machine, some of those infections weren't able to occur because Windows has a built-in malicious software removal tool that will also help to combat different malware and viruses that can try and get themselves installed on your computer. So these are different things that you need to look out for. But as I said, the first step in this case, always make sure that your operating system is up to date. And as long as you make sure your operating system is up to date and keep it up to date, then that's going to help to minimize the amount of infections and the amount of heartache that you have with different malicious software on your computer. And the second thing I'm going to go ahead and also bring up is that you need to have an antivirus program, and a good one. Now you'll notice that throughout the course of this DVD in our tools directory we had Avast antivirus, and the reason we have this software is because just in my experience I've used it and it's worked out really well for me. The free version works very well, the paid version works even better, but depending upon whether you have the money or not, you always have the free version that's available, and it's a great quality software. And there are other ones out there such as AVG. The only reason why I didn't mention AVG in this DVD is because there were a few memory leak things going on. I've seen it where it's caused the system process on certain computers to eat up 100% of the utilization of the processor, So it's done some odd things there, but I've never had those issues with Avast. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this to install it. And I'm going to go ahead and run. I'm going to specify that the language we want to use is English. You can participate in the community if you want to. This is basically going to pretty much send them anonymous information, what viruses your computer has been infected with, different things like that to help them to operate and get a few different figures on what their software is actually fixing and what the trends are in the computer world, so to speak. So it helps them out a lot, and I guess in turn it also helps you out because it helps them to see what viruses most people are being affected by. I'm going to go ahead and leave that checked. I'm also going to go to custom installation. I'm going to leave the installation directory as default, and the reason I want to do a custom installation is just to show you the few options that we have here. We have different languages, but of course I'm only talking English, so I'm just going to leave English selected. We have a file shield, a mail shield, a web shield, a P2P shield, a IM shield, a network shield, and a behavior shield. So we have a few different options here. Now if you highlight each one, then you'll be able to disable whichever ones you want to. So in this case, I don't have mail on this computer that I'm going to use. I'm going to disable that. But if you have Thunderbird or a mail client like that, then you may want to leave the mail shield enabled. The web shield is good as far as I'm concerned. The file shield is good because you want to make sure whatever files you open is going to scan them. Now the other part about this too is that it's a double-edged sword. So all these different processes that you have running are going to run in the background, whichever ones you leave checked on this portion here. So in other words, make sure you have what you need, but if you leave them all checked, then it's just going to take more of a burden than what it may need to take on your computer. So part of just keeping your computer running as well as possible, you always want to make sure that you control whatever services you have running on your computer, and this is part of that. So I'm going to go ahead. I don't have any P2P software such as any BitTorrents or anything like that. I don't run any instant messengers on this computer, so I'm not going to really install that. I don't really need a network shield. This is going to kind of like mirror a firewall. So depending upon what you want and how your setup is, if you're connected directly to a modem, then a network shield may help you out a lot. In my case, I'm going through a router, so I'm not going to worry about it. And a behavior shield just helps you out with a few different behavioral things that can cause people to get infected. I'm going to go ahead and click on next and click on next again. You can see we have our hard disk requirements. We also have our free space. And now we're going ahead and taking off. And this should be done in just a moment. Now after this is done, I want to go ahead and show you we have under our ClamWin portable directory, we have two folders here. We have Antivirus 2010 and we have Security Shield. Now these two files contained in these zip folders were the infections that we addressed. Alright, now it's doing just a quick memory scan of the items that are loaded in the memory here. So I'm going to go ahead and let that get done. But these two files are two of the worst infections that we dealt with on this DVD. So the point I'm going to make here is that if you would have had, alright, I'm going to restart later. That's going to keep pestering me about those Windows updates. But alright, now setup is finished. I'm going to go ahead and click on finish and we're done. And we're going to be given a initial screen here. It's going to ask you, do you want to register? The thing about registration for the free software is that it is free. So they're going to ask you, do you want the pro version? And that's going to cost you $20, which is not much. You can also click here to register, and all you have to do is plug in your name and your email, what your title is. Are you a Mr. or Miss, Mrs., whatever you are, what state you're in, and why did you choose it. That's not mandatory. Really all they need is an email and a name, so that's completely up to you. but it's a fully featured software. It has real-time shields. If you ever want to schedule a boot time scan, then you can just go to Scan Computer and you can select Boot Time Scan, and you have the option here. You can schedule one. If you click on Schedule Now, then it's gonna run as soon as you restart your computer, and it's gonna be a full scan, so it may take a while. So just make sure you plan it into your day there, depending upon how slow your computer is. And going back here, I'm going to close out of our initial screen for Avast and back to these two files. So as I mentioned before, the two big infections that we dealt with, including this one that actually stopped us from running scans at all, these were the two programs that caused us a lot of issue. Now see, if you would have had a antivirus beforehand, a good antivirus software, let me go ahead and try and kick off Antivirus 2010, which is the one that was actually stopping us from running all the rest of our scans and didn't have service and startup or anything. So you're going to notice it's going to go ahead and run, but then we get a big red error here. And well, not an error, but it's a big red notification, and it's telling us that this is a Trojan in here, and it's going to go ahead and move that to the chest. So we can see that our threat has been averted here, and I'm going to go ahead and X out of this. So see, it kept us protected that time. I'm going to go ahead and open up Security Shield. This is the other program that had the companion icon too. I'm going to go ahead and try and run it, and you can see it pops up really quickly here, and it tells us a threat's been detected, and it doesn't let the file execute. So once again, very helpful things. All right, if you have a good antivirus program, you know, whether it's paid or not, all right, there's some good quality free ones out there. If you want extra protection, you can always pay a little bit extra, and this is a really big step toward keeping your computer malware free. All right, is to have a good antivirus utility on your computer. And since it is a free program, that's why we put it under our tools directory. You can install it on as many people's computers as you like. All right, and also, as I mentioned before, I look at this as more of a preventative step, because once again, sometimes if you have an infected machine and try to install Avast afterwards, then either the software may stop it from installing, or it may hide itself from the software and you won't be able to catch it at all. So it's better just to have it there before, so it can scan everything as it's happening. And let me see, this is just me. I just want to show you something. In Avast, it does have sounds in here, and just from experience, it can sometimes pop up and catch you off guard. But if you go under settings and go under sounds, you can always set it here to disable sounds in Avast. I found that stopped me from pulling my hair out a little bit, so it's pretty cool. And like I said, it's a really good software. It's a fully featured software, and once again, you can register it. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can't really ask for much more than that. Now, the other thing too here, I just want to tell you about, there's a built-in function in Windows, okay? And it doesn't really show it here, but if you hold down the Alt key and press F4, you can close out of a window. Now, the reason I bring this up is because sometimes you have pop-ups, all right? And